Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Robert A. Belle, champion of creativity, ambassador of wellness, and pursuer of excellence. Please enjoy Robert A. Belle. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with Robert A. Belle. He is a champion of creativity, an ambassador of wellness, and a pursuer of excellence. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I am ready to rumble and bring out creativity and just put it on a banner for everyone to say, I am creative.
Ooh, I love that. I resonate with that so much, putting it on a banner that I am creative. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And if you wouldn't mind, before we dive into questions, just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to have this conversation. As you said in my introduction, I'm a champion of creativity because I believe every single one of us has the ability to be creative. It's a part of being human. I'm an ambassador of wellness because creativity and this life that we live in requires some sorts of balance. It requires balance and managing our emotions and not allowing what's going on outside of us to overpower what's going on inside of us. So that's why I'm an ambassador of wellness. And I'm a pursuer of excellence because I am a recovering corporate procrastinator. Because I had the strong procrastination had stranglehold me, and I've come out of that and now become a pursuer of excellence by just appreciating the small steps. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with small steps. I think that's basically who I am. If you want to place me professionally, I'm an accountant. I have to laugh. I'm laughing for you because I'm sure you're listening to this podcast and like, what you just explained has nothing to do with accountancy. Well, that's the beauty of creativity. It doesn't tie your identity down to your work. So I'm an accountant. I run a small practice where we help people strategically, small business people. And then I'm also a creativity coach. So I help people work through the barriers and blockages they have in being creative. That's who I am.
Wonderful. I love all of that. And I so agree with each and every one of us is creative. It's part of our innate humanness. And I don't know, I might challenge you. I think accounting is probably pretty creative. You have to navigate so many things and solve some problems, but also, be able to really get creative with what you're looking at and how you're doing it. So.
It certainly does. It certainly does. As a matter of fact, accounting and the double entry system that we use in accounting came from creativity. And many people don't know that. It comes from creativity. I even delved into it in the book that I wrote, but accounting is actually one of the most creative professions. But a lot of people run from it because they just want to push numbers, etc., and get pigeonholed. But it's beautiful. I consider accountant as a storyteller. Right, you're telling a story through numbers.
Yeah,
that's my mantra. Right, it's telling a story through numbers. So me just telling you have $25 in your checking account means nothing to you. I need to put a plot. I need to put characters in it and explain it to you so that you can understand what value this has in your life.
Yeah, what a beautiful thing to be able to put a story to numbers and give it value and purpose and meaning. And totally creative, right there, right out of the gate. I love it.
Because to really help someone to understand numbers, I don't know, there's this general universal blockage when it comes to numbers, especially finances. We're like, I don't understand what's happening. Taxes? Oh, don't even talk about taxes. Right. So you have to be creative as an accountant or a finance person to be able to communicate that information to someone. And isn't that what an artist does or a creative person does? It's communicating. And an artist is considered someone who emphasizes the truth, and a scientist is someone who looks for the truth, right? So it's about an accountant, you need to be able to not just give the quantitative side, but the qualitative side and say, what does this truth mean to the person?
Yeah. Oh, I love all of that. That's amazing to take a deeper look into a career that many people think on the surface is just crunching numbers or looking at spreadsheets. And thank you for giving it breadth and depth and bringing that.
Thank you.
I love
Thank you.
it.
I am on a global quest to really redefine the profession. I've gotten a few awards around that because I've been really pushing this for a number of years.
Yeah.
We have to redefine the profession, especially in line with high ends of automation. My first job as an accountant was in 2001. And what I did then, if I am still doing those things today, something is wrong. Something is absolutely wrong. I mean, the fundamentals definitely will stay the same. I need to give my reports, but the way in which I do it, if that has not drastically evolved since I started in 2001, when we started writing in books, I'm in trouble.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like you have such a wealth of creativity at your fingertips and how you view tasks or jobs or life. But what does it mean to you to be creative?
Oh, that's a great question. Perhaps before I get into the answer to that is demystifying what creativity is, because we've talked about it. We've used the word so many times, and some of us may have a wrong association with creativity, that it's a painting, it's music, and creativity is simply coming up with something that's unique and novel, right? An idea that's unique and novel. Creativity is about association. It's about searching for information and combining it. That's what creativity is. It's not this artistic, and that's one of the most prominent expressions of creativity. Right. Creativity is just searching for information, combining it. Right. Steve Jobs says it's like connecting the dots, and dots means experience, knowledge, view, perspective. There's so many different dots. Right. So what it means for me to be creative is being uniquely human. It's being true to being a human being. Because you know what? When you're not a human being, you become a robot. Yeah. You become a number cruncher. Oh man, sorry, accountant guys. Sorry. Sorry, I'll say that only when we're in our circles, but I have to say that, right? Yeah. So not being a human you just become into this dogma, right? Into this repeat cycle. So for me, being creative is really breaking out of that mold and owning your humanness. That's why we're called human beings. We are being. So being creative for me is one, being true to your identity. That's what being creative is to me, because creativity helps to extract our identity. Right? Yeah. Being creative, number two, means not being a slave to expectations, but instead honoring inspiration. That's what creativity means to me, because think about it. We get so caught up. Oh, I'm a mother. I have to do this because it's an expectation. I'm this. And I'm not saying to abdicate duties and not do what you got to do, but we get so consumed in I have to do, as if we're robots being programmed, as opposed to us being the programmers who are going to change the reality in which we live in. So being creative is really just changing the reality that we're living in. And brings me to point number three, is just being a dreamer. For me, being creative is being a dreamer. Is getting in touch with those dreams that we have. And dreams here doesn't necessarily mean, sleeping and you're woken and you've seen E equals MC squared, Right. Not necessarily like that, right? Dreams for me at a deeper level is the song of the soul. A dream for me is the music of your soul. What song it's been sung inside of your soul that you've been silencing, that you've been just suppressing, that you've been putting on mute, and it's been on full blast, but no one can hear it, not even yourself.
Yeah. What beautifully said. I really resonate with the dreaming and, putting those dreams on mute, or that song of your soul that you've muted. What are some of your dreams that you're dreaming right now?
Well, I'm living my dream. When people say dreams don't come true, my dreams come true, because it's not just about a big house or fancy car. Yeah. And yes, we would love that, but at a deeper soul level, there's more to life than that. And my dream is, as I said, is to redefine the accountancy and finance profession, right? That is my dream, because I was tired of taking on that persona. When I would raise my hand and say, the accountant guy, we're not talking about numbers yet. It's not your turn. Yeah, we'll come to you later on. Because I felt so relegated that you guys can come up with ideas, you marketers and everyone. It's like, okay, here, accountant, it's going to cost us this much amount of money. Tell us where we find the money. I'm like, what? Like I have a brain. Like, I can think, I can see, I have senses. So my dream has always been to redefine this. And I fought early in my career for this, and I was hit very hard. I mean, because I started this 10 years ago or so. And people were like, you were talking nonsense. Like, it's like, you need to wake up. And the thing that I kept hearing people say is that, oh, that sounds great. I mean, it would be good for accountants to be creative, you know. And I'll always hear people say, but I mean, I live in the real world. And I noticed that that is a common response when someone has something that doesn't really connect with the current reality we know. Oh, I'm imagining cars one day would fly in the sky or something, you know, or we will be talking, and I'm here in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm talking to you. Someone will say like, oh, but I live in the real world, because you see, the real world is full of so many obstacles, right? Full of so many obstacles. So my dream was to break through the barrier in my profession to help my fellow accountants know that, listen, we are creative because we are human beings. And then that dream evolved to making everyone know that we are all creative, and we have this creative energy inside of us that the world is just waiting to embrace.
Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about kind of the challenges that have come up. How have you faced those creative challenges?
At first, they crushed me.
Yeah.
It's difficult, because when you have that dream and you have that inspiration and you look around you and you see no possibility, you just don't see it happening. You just think, am I really going crazy? You start to believe that, right? And at first I did. Going back to my profession example, I decided, all right, this is the way it is. I guess people have tried and failed. All right, I've learned my lesson. I had my glasses, my pocket square with my pens, and I took on the persona, and I tried it. And I tried it. I really tried it. And I was like, yes, I wouldn't say anything, keep my mouth shut. But I could see some obvious things. And when I would share it with my friends at the lunch table or the water cooler, they'd be like, how do you see that? I was like, but it's right in front of you. Like, can you not see those dots connected?
Yeah.
They were like, no, what are you seeing? Tell us, teach us. And I'll say, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, man, that is so interesting. So what I started to do with the challenges is I started to look at them objectively. Why am I facing this challenge? I think this person is not seeing the things the way I see. And slowly but surely, I started to believe in myself. But before I started to believe in myself, because belief comes when there's evidence, I started to trust myself. So I developed a 3-step process that I teach people, right? It's called TBA. I started to trust myself. Because trust is an element of faith. You don't know what's going to happen. So I had to put my hand up, give that idea. I had to try something out. I gave myself permission to fail. That's how I trust myself. So people always come to me and say, how can I trust myself more and believe in my ideas? And I flip it back to them. I was like, if you get into a relationship with someone, how do you trust them? Right? You can't be absolutely sure, right? You got to take a chance. And then when you get evidence, you believe. Your belief gets strengthened. So I started to believe in me. I stopped focusing on what's going on outside of me and the naysayers and the challenges that I face. And I started to believe in myself. And then 3, I started to acknowledge where and how to express my creativity. Not when, where and how. When was never a question, right? It was where. Where in terms of where am I, what current reality I'm in. Because if you share some great billion-dollar ideas with people who are struggling to get food on the table, it's likely not going to resonate there. Right?
It's so true. Yeah.
It's just not going to resonate there. So I had to learn where to share these experiences. And one of the best places that I learned to share my ideas, by journaling. That's how I face my challenges. I started to journal and I wrote it down. And when I write it down, I leave it. I don't try to make sense of it. It's like, idea, blah, 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 blah. I tell you, sometimes I go back to my notes 1 year later, and that's when it makes sense. That's when I get the aha moment, right? But I had to put you remember earlier I said creativity is connecting the dots?
Yeah.
I've learned to put the dots down. So even though I try a creative endeavor and it doesn't work out, I tried a project, it doesn't work, I started to write it down. I started to write down why did it work. I didn't give up on it. I just gave it time to foster. It's like a seed, right?
Yeah.
So I had to understand the planting process. So my planting process is to put the idea down and I got to let it germinate. I got to let it simmer. And when I started to observe that through my life, I was getting ideas 5 years ahead of its time, 10 years ahead of its time. Like I told you, I was on a quest to try and change the profession, but I didn't have anyone to help me.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, the World Economic Forum says, here are the top jobs that are at risk for automation: bookkeeping, accountancy, and everything was around that area. So I was like, guys, remember I wrote this like 5 years ago. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
And then the professional body I'm a member of, ACCA, produced a report where they asked the professionals around the world, what are the key skills you think the accountant is going to need come 2020? And creativity was one of them. I was like, it's ready. They're ready for me. They are ready for me. That's how I deal with my challenges. I learned to just know, the timing. I learned to trust the process, put the seed down, let it germinate. It takes time. It really takes time. Sometimes, some people think you just get an idea, boom, you start it. I don't see any evidence of that. YouTube, Facebook, Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom had to be there. Now, when the pandemic hit, everyone was like, I'm zooming. It became an expression, but they had to be ready. They had to be ready. So whenever I get a challenge, I put it down and I humble myself. I was like, look, it's not that they can't see it. It's like they're just not ready for it yet.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I too experience that in my own creative endeavors, that it's a little too new. It's not familiar enough to make sense. But that idea of writing it down, coming back to it, letting it germinate, planting those seeds makes total sense. That a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whenever it happens, whenever people start to recognize these components that have power and can change professions or careers or the world around us, that strength it's wonderful, and that you trust it enough. And I too believe that having safety and trust within yourself really supports that foundation to take those creative risks from and come back to. But yeah, you're right.
And I want to be very practical, because that sounds very good. Someone might be listening to that, but it is still challenging. It can demotivate you when you have that idea, you think you see it that way. So the second thing I would say, just on dealing with the challenges, that I got a cheerleader, I got a coach, I got someone who will understand. The coach doesn't have to understand and my ideas, but they just have to give me that space where I can, put it down, and they help me to connect the dots. Like, okay, I don't really understand what you're saying, but I think this connects with that. Why don't you try it this way? Why don't you try it that way? So I got a cheerleader who will be like, great ideas. Great ideas. I mean, I had a list that I wrote of things I wanted to accomplish in my own personal life, because this is being creative also. Yeah. I wrote them down. I wrote them down. I put them away in my journal. I think I just locked them into my head and I got to work. One day I was just cleaning out my books, my notes. I like reviewing things I've written 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because there's always a clue. There's always a clue somewhere. When I looked at that list, it was just about 2 weeks shy of the 5th anniversary of that list. And I had accomplished every single thing on that list.
That's amazing.
Thank you. I looked at it, but I also acknowledged what challenges I faced through it. And I said, I almost gave up on this one. I almost gave up on that one. But I accomplished every single thing. And since then, I've been going forward facing, no retreating.
Nice. It just sounds like creativity is such a huge part of your life. Has it always been a part of your life? Like even in childhood, did you see yourself as a creative kid?
I didn't even know what creativity was.
All right. Okay.
I'm being very honest. I didn't know the word. I had no clue what it was. No clue. But when I was a child, I just refuse to be anyone else except myself.
Mm.
And it was a fight. I went through formal education. That was a challenge because I would
Yeah.
ask questions. And I was like, I didn't understand. I didn't have the awareness at that time to understand that what I was doing, it was being perceived as being rude
Mm-hmm.
and what's the word? Not respectful of authority. I didn't have the awareness then.
Yeah.
I that was just me. I was constantly, I tried. I guess I just refused. It's a refusal, but I also tried and it just couldn't work. I just
Yeah.
tried it. I tried it. It didn't work. So growing up, I was just used to being myself. And then when I wasn't myself, I would literally get sick.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, why didn't I say that? I would get sick. So I started to listen to myself. I was like, no, I can't do this. I cannot live my life like this. And I
Mm-hmm.
started to hang out with people older than me to ask them, how was your childhood? Because I wanted to know what people did and what transition they went through. And what scared the heck out of me is that 99% of people said, oh man, when I was your age, yeah, I was just like that. And they get happy and excited speaking about it. And then all of a sudden the mood changes. Yeah, now I'm a mom. Yeah, I'm a doctor or whatever. Then the joy just was sapped
Mm.
out of them. So that was always a question on my mind. What happened? And what I noticed, and that's why I wrote my book, is that they gave up on their creativity. So I didn't know what it was. I was just looking for that missing piece. And when I went
Yeah.
looking for it, is when I found creativity.
Nice. That statement.
FYI, horrible painter. At least I could play a few instruments. So that's why I just was convinced I was not creative, because the traditional assessment,
Yeah. Didn't match
no,
the,
it didn't.
yeah.
That's why I went into accountancy.
And discovered I love that you went into accountancy and discovered creativity. I think what a beautiful gift that you can find it anywhere. It's not just in painting or performing or singing or dancing. It literally can be found anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really struck me when you said talking to people and having them light up and filled with joy about childhood, and then that just kind of eraser of joy. It's like, I can imagine, because I feel like I've had conversations with people where they have experienced that and are going through that, and man, it's just soul crushing to witness someone have joy and then squash it or experience it in that
It's
fashion.
eradicated. I say it's
Yeah.
eradicated because it's an eradication. It just gets wiped out of you, and society and work and all kind of corporate life just wipes it out of us. And that's why my second book is actually going to address that, right? I
Oh.
mean, it's how to develop courage and avoid future regret. I mean, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
the exact title yet. I'm still working on the content. So I want to write the book now to help people avoid that future regret. That when you
Yeah.
get into your 30s, when you get into your 40s, when you get into your 50s, you're not looking back and like, man, I really, because that's one of the things when you're on a deathbed, the things that you remember the most are the things that you regret, the things that
Mm-hmm.
those seeds you didn't germinate. So how can I help you avoid that future regret? It's a concept I've been trying to look into, future regret. Like, how can you have a
Yeah.
regret and it hasn't happened yet? But you can project, because see, I took my skills from accountancy where we do analysis and projections, and we look
Mm-hmm.
forward, we forward looking, right? Forward
Yeah.
looking data. And I did that. I'm like, hey, I can tell. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to help people that if you don't get your creativity back and put it in check right now and other things and develop the courage to take the risk, you're going to end up in a position of future regret.
Mm. Oh, wow. That's profound to hear that. Like, as someone who is perhaps in that space right now, to like, I don't want to regret things in the future. Do you have any tips or skills that one skill that you could share with someone right now about what's one thing they could start to do to not have
Ooh.
future regrets?
Now you're letting me trying to think about my content, and I'm trying to compartmentalize, and I'll get there. I'll get there. I haven't really fully shaped it out, but
Yeah.
I know it's something, and I've learned to, what I said at the start, I've learned to trust myself. I know
Yeah.
it's something. So I picture, when I dream, that's another dream I'm doing, is this worldwide movement where people are stand up like, I'm not gonna be you, I'm not gonna regret, I'm gonna be true to myself today. I'm gonna whether win or lose, I'm gonna do it. So the tip that I have, and that's a central theme of the book that I'm coming out, is courage. Right?
Oh,
Have to embrace courage.
yeah.
Now, let's demystify courage. I don't know why I keep going to C words. Creativity, courage. Maybe the third book will be something C. I don't know.
Why not?
Yeah. We sometimes misunderstand courage to mean confidence. And that
Mm-hmm.
is the biggest barrier we have to courage. Because we think courage means having confidence, one in confidence or competence, actually.
Yeah,
So before I can start a podcast, I must have done podcasting 101 course, all 28 modules, and scored 80% and higher.
right.
You can do all of that. But if you don't have the courage, there's no way you're going to press record for that first thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that tip is courage. Now, how do you get that courage? Courage is all about commitment.
Hmm.
It's all about commitment.
Yeah.
Because what happens, think about it. You make the step, you get everything set up, you have the mic ready, and there's just you're in pause motion. You can't click that record button because you've failed to live out the commitment. Now, if you were very sure about your commitment, you will hit that record, whether it's an error, whether something happens, and even put just be vulnerable that it may not go right. It may not
Yeah.
go right. And one of the biggest tragedies we do is that the biggest lie we tell ourselves is expecting the first time we try something and every time after that to be perfect.
That's so true. So true. Oh my goodness. And I really appreciate you bringing up the word vulnerability, because I think courage, it takes so much vulnerability to be courageous, to press record, to commit to what we're doing. It's so much easier to take that path of least resistance and not do it, stay distanced from courage. And so, yeah, trusting yourself, having the vulnerability, acknowledging it might fail, and you'll learn something. Failing is learning. And
Exactly. Failing is learning. And, the thing is, why I say courage is commitment, because when you commit to something, you get a relationship with whatever that is, right? We commit to people a lot, but one thing we don't do is commit to our dreams. You got to commit to your plans.
Yeah.
You have to commit to it, because when you commit, you form a relationship, and a relationship has ups and downs, right? As you said, there's vulnerability, there's this potential of failure, potential of success, but you got to commit that if I get knocked back down, I'm going to do it again. That's how you get to press record, because you've committed that even though I
Right.
press record and it doesn't work, I'm going to go back and press record again. You got to be committed, right?
Yeah.
And when I tell people I'm writing this book about courage and avoiding future regret, like, yeah, we all need to be able to call on courage when we need it. I was like, no, we don't. Courage is not something you call on like, hey, let's go. I need to do this task. That's false courage. That's
Yeah.
false courage. And that's why a lot of us can end up, I'm not calling anyone out here, but I do a lot of mentorship for men also. And that's why a lot of people that I deal with are trapped by the bottle, because I need to take that drink to get courage. It's a false sense of courage, right? Because you've not committed. So you're trying to get an external source to fuel your commitment. And all you got, it takes an internal commitment. You got to commit to what's going on inside of you and forget about what's going on outside of you. You don't need this external stimuli. It's a false sense of courage. And that's something that I want people to, just put in the front of their mind, right? To avoid the future regret and to get things done, is that you just have to commit.
Yeah. Nice. All of this is inspiring to me, hearing all of it and thinking, oh, how do I get to incorporate that into the things that I'm doing in my life and in my world and my coaching clients? And yeah, thank you for the inspiration and the skills and tips. They're wonderful. It just sounds like you have such a stellar community that you work with, the cheerleaders, the people that you mentor. I imagine at some time you had people mentoring you as well. And when you think of your community, how does your community impact and influence your creativity?
They totally keep me in check.
Okay.
And community is 360 degree. It's about helping and also being helped, right? Because when you're being helped, is that you got to take on this humility role. You got to take this humility position, this posture that I need to learn, right? There's something I can learn from you. It may not be everything that I need to know, but there's something I can learn from you.
Yeah.
Teaching someone, you have to be able to put yourself in their position and understand where are they coming from, what are their barriers, right? That's why I love coaching and mentoring people, because it really keeps me also to remember, could I be doing the same thing in my own life? Right? It's very difficult for us to be objective with ourselves, extremely difficult to be objective with ourselves, right? So the community helps me to just get that 360-degree view of what's going on. Like when I say, hey, I did this, because I was on an interview the other day and someone said, why is it important to keep reinventing yourself? And I challenge myself to do that a lot. That's what my community does, because we can become so complacent, and then we can become so ungrateful. And I'm saying that we become so ungrateful to the experiences we've had. I say that because you find someone is a multi-winning award, Grammy award winning, Emmy award winning person. And when some sense of hopelessness hits you, that person can actually say, I feel like a failure. It's mind boggling. It's extreme. And we do, every one of us do it. And I'm telling, okay, at least I do it. I'm sorry. You know, there are times I say, like, man, what am I doing in my life? Like, I'm not doing anything, right? And one of the reasons why we do that, okay, look, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm saying my own things.
Yeah, that's
Please
fine.
put that disclaimer flashing across. The reason we do that is because there is a seed inside of us that's waiting to grow. Only we know that. Only we know that seed that's trying to grow. And we've been when we deny it so much, that's when we open that gate of now starting to compare ourselves to what's happening. What are people doing? And not appreciating the growth that we have had. That, whoa, I actually have a vineyard here. Like, I've actually done this. So community helps me to recognize, like, I helped you. There's so many people who come to me and said, look, I listened to you speak 2 years ago. And that day I wrote in my journal that I have to meet you one day. And somehow tables worked around. I have a young man like that. I'm in my business right now. And he was like, man, you don't know how long I've been waiting for this day. And that just makes me like, man, what if I didn't show up that day to speak? What if I just didn't say what I said that day? So that community just helps me to recognize and appreciate that there is growth. This my life has meaning. Very important to have that, because we sit and we say, look, I don't think I've achieved a lot, and it can hit us, right? And when those moments come to me, because that's how I keep my creativity re-energized and everything. When those moments come to me, I take a break. I take a break, and I ghost that. I unfollow that that page. I unfollow, I block it, I go take a break, I go do something else, play sports, work out, take a break even for 2 days and just say, no, stop it. I was like, no, this is the last stop on this train. Nope, this is the last. This service has been terminated at this station and will be discontinued from this moment forward. This service stops right here, because this is not a service. This is not a train I want to get on. I'm getting off. Please. I'm getting off. I'm getting off. And some of the challenges that we have sometimes with that in our lives, and I'm going to get even to a deeper level, is that as an accountant, I value and appreciate sunk cost. And this is where the regret comes in, because I know I've committed to a path, but I didn't really think about it too much. Or maybe something has happened that, it's just not connecting me. I was doing it for the wrong reasons. But because I've put so much effort in, I've put so much effort in it. It's never wasted effort, because you can transfer learning. Failure is the best teacher, not success. Success is a horrible teacher. So many of us get sunk, and we get sunk particularly in our profession, in an identity. We take on this identity of our profession, and then we realize, whoa, I'm top of my class. I'm making 6 figures, but I'm just not satisfied. Because there's this longing inside of you, right? There's this longing inside of you that you have ignored for so long, and you feel like it's too late now to even start to water that seed. But it's not. It's not too late. Consider the sunk cost, but transfer the value you have gotten from that experience and use it to fuel this experience. And you'll be shocked how quickly that seed can grow. I mean, not genetically modified, but you'll be shocked, because you can use that experience. So at times we struggle. And that's the regret I'm talking about, because look, I'm a doctor. I went to medicine school, so I can't write articles. I can't do whatever. Valuing the importance of relearning. And that's what they say. The illiterate of the 21st century is not those who can't read or write. It's those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Yeah, so true. I mean, you also you have so much self-awareness to say this is the last stop on that train. That train is terminated here. How did you like what in your life helped you get to the point of having such profound self-awareness to recognize, oh, that thought is here, that train is trying to move forward?
That I can't expect a savior to come and save the day.
Mm, yeah.
I have to make the choice. Now, I'm
Mhm.
not saying I don't need help. Very
Yeah.
different. I'm not saying I don't need help, but no one is literally going to stop those thoughts in my mind.
Right.
No one. It has to be not medication, not a program. It has to be me. So the sooner I accept that is the sooner I can take action. Right?
Mhm.
That's where the self-awareness comes. I need to know it's me. It's
Mhm.
on me. Now, do I need to get information to help me make that decision? Sure. Do I need support to make that decision? Sure. Do I need
Mhm.
accountability to make that decision? Sure. But that decision has to be mine. And how I do that is by doing objective talk, right?
Mm,
Objective self-talk, not positive self-talk,
okay.
right? I find there's a bit of toxicity in positive self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I don't have a problem with affirmations, I have a problem with the use of it, or should I say the
Mhm.
abuse of it,
Yeah.
right? Objective self-talk, and there's a lot of science behind it. I can't remember it on top of my head. Is that
Mhm.
I speak to myself and I say, Robert, I speak to myself as if I'm coaching someone.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
science tells us that when someone presents a problem to us, we can easily see it's like, yeah, okay, you just need to do that, right? But
Right.
when it comes to ourselves, no, we're doomed. This is, World War VII. It's never gonna end.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say it in a nice, light way, but it does get serious. It does get
Yeah.
serious, and we see the worst in ourselves, right?
Mhm.
But we can see the solution to someone. It goes back to what you said about the community. That community helps me to realize I need to. So what I do, the objective self-talk, I say, Robert, why did you do that? And I answer
Mm,
myself
mhm.
honestly. I answer myself honestly sometimes through pages.
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt pissed. I
Mhm.
felt pissed. I felt pissed because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Right. So I objectively talk to myself. And it's tough because I
Yeah.
end up crying with myself and also
Mm.
consoling myself.
Yeah.
And people say it's so weird that we call people who speak to themselves on the street crazy, but that is some of the most emotionally healing processes we can ever do. So I go for a
Mhm.
walk and I say, Robert, and I don't just think it in my head, I voice it. I say,
Yeah.
Robert, that was not a good decision. But you know what? You can do better tomorrow,
Mm.
right? It's
Mhm.
gone. You're not going to change it. Ruminating on it is not going to change it. What you
Mhm.
can change is the trajectory. That's where I got this concept of stopping the service, terminating the service. I
Mhm.
can't change where the train has passed. I can't change that. What I
Yeah.
can change is what I'm going to pick along that journey. Oh, I did meet Mr. X and he did say something. I
Mm.
can use that somewhere else. So I
Mhm.
speak to myself objectively and I said, Robert, you got to do that. But the most important thing, besides all that objective self talk, is that I have to set the rules of engagement.
Mm.
I think that's
Mhm.
the big winner. I'm
Yeah.
giving these are tips that I use with my client. Like this is the big one. Like
Yeah.
you have to set the rules of engagement. You can't go into battle, and if you run out of ammunition, then you start thinking, "What do I do?" You gotta have that foresight
Mhm.
now. You gotta have that foresight now. It's not that you're trying to anticipate problems, right? But you're
Mhm.
trying to prepare for them. So it's like you may not get it precise, right? So you have some
Yeah.
general rules of engagement, right? Or let me call
Mhm.
them principles. Let me
Mhm.
rules are so yes, no. So principles of engagement. So my principle, as I said, when I start to get that, is go exercise. My
Mm.
principle is take a break. My
Mhm.
principle is change the motion because there's so much neuroscience around it. Is that one of the reasons why we get stuck in this loop of depression and negative self-thought and everything is
Mhm.
because the associations we have had in our brains. And
Yeah.
sleep, relaxation, outdoor activity is one of the best ways to disassociate the thoughts that we have. And when I
Mhm.
go and I exercise, I come back, it's like, what? Why was I even thinking that? Like, have you never done something and you look back, you're like, I did that. Like,
Yep.
what was I thinking? Because
Yeah.
usually we're sleep deprived, energy deprived, and also inspirationally deprived. So when I
Mm.
get to those moments, I start something new. I start something
Mhm.
else like, nope. nope, that service is being terminated, but I'm going to try something new. And that's usually one of the worst times to try something new, because you're like, you feel like a failure. But that's the importance of creativity, because it spring forth this new energy to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I really wish everyone could just do that. We would just be so happy.
Yeah, it does. It brings so much happiness and joy back into the moment you're experiencing that creative, that new thing, that creativity. And it doesn't mean you can't come back to the old piece or the other thoughts, but you might have new inspiration or new perspective to look at them as well. Oh, this has been delightful.
Let me, if you give me one more minute, I'll just drop some deep science on that.
Yeah.
Deep science on that. I'm talking about the association, and there's some neuroconnectors, I think they call in our brain, called synapses.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And their job, is to help, along with a lot of other processes, to transfer information back and forth. They are roused when we are awake. They are roused, they're fired up, they're processing information, right? Their downtime is when we're resting and sleeping.
Yeah.
But while we are resting and sleeping, those synapses are now collating information to really look at it properly. I was like, we were such in a hurry processing information today. We didn't really get a chance to absorb the full content. It's keeping track of everything that's coming in, but it's only selectively giving you what you need, at least, to make it to the next task. So when we give them downtime, they come back and they look at it as like, you know what, we missed something, right? We missed something. We were sacrificing tomorrow just so we can make it through to today. You missed something. And that's why when you have a big decision to make, they say sleep on it, right? It's not just this woo-woo kind of thing. There's so much neuroscience around it. Sleep on it, give yourself a break. And think about it. What keeps us up at night? A decision. Or
it's so true.
And so the easiest solution to do is just let it go. Let it go, come back to it, write it down, write it down. Because what happens if you don't write it down or take track of where you are and what progress you've made? The brain can play tricks on you and wipe out all that progress. And then the next time you think about it, you start from negative the next time.
Right.
Like, no, I actually did bad in that situation. But you started to identify some positive, but you've not given your brain that time to synthesize things. So you're like, ugh.
Yeah, the integration piece is so important. I think many of us kind of stop before the integration. We move on. We don't allow our system to integrate experience, thoughts, and that whole body system, not just our brain. So yeah, thank you for that reminder. I appreciate it. Yeah, this has been so much fun chatting with you about creativity and all of the pieces. And if people want to learn more about all of the things that you are doing, how would they go about doing that?
Great. I try to be on the internet. Disclaimer, I try. It's not one of my strong suits. And you can find me on my website, www.robertabelle.com. I'm trying to collate my different podcast interviews, other things that I'm doing. So you can listen to some different interviews or talks I've had there. You can connect with me through social media from my website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Across all channels, I'm Robert A. Belle, so people can connect with me that way. And then you can sign up for my newsletter. I give some gems on, creativity, moving out of the comfort zone, things like that. So you can sign up for that. That's the best way to get me. And YouTube, a few videos there. And by the time this episode comes out, you should be seeing a TED Talk that I would have given.
Wonderful.
And it's around how accounting in our personal lives can give us deep emotional insights.
Wonderful. That's amazing.
Should be out by then, and I'll drop the link so you can put it in the show notes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It has been such a treat. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.